Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name's Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker, licensed real estate broker in the state of California, member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, do not hold that against me. Welcome to it, folks. I feel like I should give a special name to today's show, or put it in a special category, like stupid things realtors say to people, or dumb things that get sold as the truth, because that's kind of where we're at with this one. And you know what? Maybe I'm being a little bit too extreme, but this one has always confused me. I've never understood how there could be so much confusion around something as simple as an open house. And I think there's a lot of ulterior motives. I think there's a lot of pitching of an idea that is a little self-serving for real estate agents. So we're going to go ahead and run it down. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty, just to remind everyone, I am an active licensed real estate broker in the state of California, serving Silicon Valley, particularly the southern half of Silicon Valley, from Gilroy all the way up to right around when the 85 hits through San Jose. Love helping people out. If you are interested in buying, selling, or investing in real estate, I would love to help you, or at least get an opportunity to discuss with you how I can help you and let you decide. Talk to a bunch of different agents and see which one you think fits best with you. I would just love to be in the group of considered agents. So feel free to reach out to me at soldbyrobert.com. If you'd like to see the tools that I offer for buyers and sellers to make their process easier for them to achieve their goals in real estate, feel free to visit me there. Always happy to help. Now, let's go ahead and start at the top with what the current pitch is for open houses, right? Open houses shouldn't be a complicated thing. Open houses are a very simple part of the real estate process. They achieve a very specific thing. And part of the whole weird shell game that gets played with the term open house is by trying to convince you it's a thing that it's not, and not really paying attention to the thing that it is, and then understanding the part that the open house can play in the marketing of your home. So let's go ahead and jump in. Now, the first argument goes something like this. Buyers today use the internet to browse for homes and narrow down their choices. One piece of data that they like to throw around is that the National Association of Realtors survey found that only 7% of buyers found the home they bought by visiting an open house. Okay. Well, let's think about that for a second. The first step taken during the home buying process. Now, this is directly from the National Association of Realtors, so bear in mind this is national data. My local data is a little different from this data, but if you want to try to get a hold on basically the relative relevance of different things in a list, I think this is probably a good thing to look at. So the first step taken during the home buying process. Visited an open house, if we just look at all buyers, not different age groups, visiting an open house was 4% of all buyers. And that should make sense to you. The first step I would take in buying a house is not visiting an open house. That's not what an open house is for. An open house is not supposed to be your introduction to the house. That happens on the internet or some other way. And we can see, of course, that's what gets borne out. Looked online for properties for sale, 43% of all buyers. That number is less than half what it is here locally in the Bay Area, where between 80 and 90% of buyers start their search for a home online. Contacted a real estate agent is the number 2 one at 18%, which is also staggeringly high, given just what I feel like is the real world experience I have. Looked online for information about the home buying process, 9%. So this is all first steps. This isn't even I'm buying something yet. This is just the first step taken during the home buying process. Number 2, information sources used in the home search. Well, now things get a little different, right? Because here is the interesting thing to point out. If you'll go back, if you'll recall what I just said, the National Association of Realtors survey found that only 7% of buyers found the home they bought visiting an open house. Well, of course they didn't. Nobody finds the house they're looking for at the open house, but a whole heck of a lot of them view the home they have found using an open house. Information sources used in a home search, all buyers, 53% used open houses. 87% used real estate agents, 76% used mobile or tablet search devices. So in terms of understanding what a open house is, let's all agree right now, it is not designed to be the introduction to the house. Maybe the physical introduction, right? The very first time someone's gone and visited the home, but it is designed to be a tool to make the home viewable by a buyer. That's it. It is a scheduled chunk of time that should be expertly and professionally advertised with at least 7 days warning in all the various methods available. And we're going to get into some other interesting numbers here. There's sort of bonus data for you to consider. And bonus data in the point that some of these things we're going to talk about what agents actually do and more importantly don't do, you need to be aware of as a consumer of real estate agent services. All right. So the next point that tends to get made, probably the most common one that I hear and that I hear other agents pitching, is that real estate agents use in listing appointments all the time, is that open houses are really more about realtors getting new clients at open houses and far less about selling the home. A line home sellers might frequently hear is, "I have never seen or heard of someone selling a home at an open house." Okay, but that's not what the open house is for. The open house is not supposed to be the thing that sells the house. Well, or at least it's a part of that equation, perhaps, but that's not what its intent is. Its intent is let buyers see the house. Now, to sort of just riff off of this a little bit, over my 30 years, now I got into real estate. I got licensed in mid to late 1988. Over my entire career, I have sold 4 homes, approximately. It's been a long time. I've sold approximately 4 homes at an open house. And by sold, I mean a buyer showed up, they weren't already represented by a real estate agent, and they wanted to buy the house. And we literally sat down and wrote an offer at the open house at the kitchen table. That's happened 4 times. So yeah, it can happen. Are you going to hold your breath on that one based on the fact I've done hundreds of open houses? No, probably not. It's not going to be the most common thing, right? Now, the third point, which is the most commonly used, is that it presents an opportunity for theft. When people come into the home, they could potentially steal valuables that are in the home, those types of things. And is that a possibility? Absolutely. In my over 30 years doing this, has it ever happened? Not that I'm aware of. No, I've never had a seller tell me, hey, you did this open house last weekend and now we're finding all this jewelry is missing. It's never happened. Also, I would argue that if your agent is advising you correctly and you understand and are calibrated to how long it's likely to get this home sold, and you as a seller are committed to selling your home, you only need to keep what you plan to use for the next 30 to 90 days, right? It depends on how long homes tend to stay on the market in your area. So pack the rest of it. The first thing you should do is pack up the valuables that you're not going to be using over the next 90 days. In addition to that, there are other steps that you can take. There are precautions you can take before you start holding open houses to minimize the risk of this being something that happens. Now, ideally, a real estate agent would be able to accompany everyone who comes into your home during an open house and be with them. That's not realistic, particularly if you have an agent who's doing their job right and is getting a lot of attention at their open houses. And I've had open houses where I've had 20 people come into the open house. And at the very least, you need to have someone to greet folks who come in. And then if you do anticipate a lot of folks, maybe you can get a second or third agent to be there. And then you just station those folks at the most critical places, which is typically the master bedroom and maybe the kitchen, right? But again, odds are you're not going to have multiple agents at your open house. Now, the other reality I'd like to dip into a little bit here is if this was such a boon for real estate agents, they would not be telling you not to do one, because typically what this is used to pitch to you is, we don't need to do any open houses. We'll be able to get this thing sold without open houses, or we can do one open house, but really they're not effective for you. They're not a great thing for the seller. And my point would be that is not only a complete missing of what the point of an open house is, but it's also 100% wrong. Do open houses play an important part of your marketing strategy as getting that home sold? If it isn't, it should. If you're not doing open houses, then I'm going to ask why. What is the downside of doing open houses? Is there one? Aside from maybe an inconvenience for the seller, and that's absolutely something to take into account, but then also understanding the circumstances, right? If you have a seller that for whatever reason, maybe they've got a brand new baby in the house, or they've got lots of pets, or whatever, and you need 24 hours notice in order to let buyers into that house, open houses become critical. As I've said before, I think I said this in the last podcast, the easiest house to show is the one that will get shown and will get shown the most, which increases the probability that you're going to have a buyer come along that wants to buy that house. Something else that's true about open houses, they typically go for 5 hours, sometimes longer. I've seen a few agents who tend to do shorter ones, which I don't think is horribly smart, but that's another topic for another time. You'll find buyers will come back. Buyers have decided, I'm going to spend all day Saturday looking at open houses for houses I like that I've looked up. They go and they look. Let's say they hit yours at 11 a.m. right when you opened your open house. Then they come back at 2 because they went and looked at 2 other open houses and they really want to refresh their memory. That's a good sign. And it's also a great option for buyers to grease the skids of being able to view that property. Open houses are quite simply the easiest way for someone to get to view the home for sale. You don't have to schedule a specific time. As long as you show up in some sort of a 5 to 7 hour window, you get to see the house. And that's it. And there's no pressure. You don't have to meet the agent that you are already dealing with. You can have private conversations with your significant other or the kids or whatever while you're looking at the house without feeling under the stress of being accompanied by your real estate agent. Of course, there's the agent that's there. And if you're the only person in the house at the time, that person is probably going to walk around with you, or at the very least, keep within view of you. I know that's what I tend to do. A, so I'm available for any questions, but B, to try to be that precautionary method to prevent bad things from happening in an open house. So it's a huge and important tool. So let's go into is it more important for agents? Are these really just a tool for agents? And let's also come up to another reality. Both things can be true at the same time. Right? An open house can be an absolutely amazing tool to get a home sold for sellers, and it can also be an absolutely amazing tool for real estate agents to get more clients. It can be both things. And they state this as if, well, if it's super beneficial to your agent, it must suck for you, right? No. But let's examine that a little bit, because here's the reality. The reason why they are telling you this is they don't want to do open houses. If an agent does schedule an open house, odds are, depending on the agent, they're not going to be the one who holds it open. If they've got a team, whoever's lowest on the totem pole is going to be the one who does your open house. Or they're going to find a brand spanking new agent who has absolutely no clients, no leads, no nothing, and ask someone in their office to hold it open for them. That's how that stuff tends to go. When I was a part of a big office, that was the thing. When I was a brand new, shiny, freshly minted agent, I was in open houses all the time, every weekend. I had no listings, but man, was I doing open houses. So let's take a look at, is this really more effective as a tool for agents than it is as a tool for sellers to get their homes sold? So, methods used to find a real estate agent. Visited an open house. Now this is for sellers, right? 3%. 3% of sellers visited an open house and met an agent, and that's the agent they use to list their house. So we're even talking the more preferred thing. Listings are the more preferred way of working in real estate. 3%. Okay, well, that's pretty good. Well, it's not pretty good. I mean, it's 3%, right? So 3 out of 100 people that potentially come into, or 3 out of 100 groups come into this property, perhaps you are going to get yourself a listing out of that. Next, how a buyer found their real estate agent. Visited an open house and met an agent. 6%. Well, that's not great, right? That's a very small number. So most agents don't consider this to be some great way to get a client. In my experience, the vast majority of buyers who come to open houses, particularly in the modern world, it used to be far fewer in the olden days. Pre-internet, you could count on a higher percentage of unrepresented buyers and sellers coming to your open house. Today, most buyers that walk in tend to be someone who's already working with an agent. They've either signed an agent representation agreement with a realtor, or it's an informal, I've already got someone who's helping me find a house relationship. So That's why this number tends to be so low, because not every single person who walks into that open house who's a real potential buyer is going to be someone who can work with that agent who's holding the open house, because they already have a relationship with someone. The next little chunk of data I'd like to throw out there, where buyer found the home they purchased. Now, this one is interesting. 7%, number 3 on this list, was yard sign or open house sign. Now, of course, it's mixing yard signs with open house signs. I think that's a stupid mix. I don't understand anyone who does stats why they would mix them that way, because a yard sign is up 24/7. A open house sign is only up when the open house is on. So I think statistically it would be far more relevant to break those things out into 2 separate things, but there you go. But it is number 3. Number 1 is the internet, and number 2 is a real estate agent that they're working with. Next, the value of website features. I think this one is interesting because 46% of all buyers found information about upcoming open houses. So these are all folks who want to see open houses and wanted to get information about them. I have a section of my website that allows you to search for open houses, either in the entire county, specific cities, whatever, based on beds, baths, so that you know you're only looking at open houses for homes that meet your needs. And I get an awful lot of traffic on that particular chunk of my website, indicating the level of interest that folks have in being able to view homes during an open house. Next, methods real estate agent used to market a home. 53, and this is sort of the bonus part of today's show. 53% used an open house. 68%, and this one blows my mind, 68% used a yard sign. How is that not 100%? How is a yard sign not 100%? Now, I realize there are some communities where you can't put a sign out, like some HOAs won't allow it. But in those situations, you can at least put a sign in a window. I can't remember a time where I couldn't put a sign out. So I'm not sure why it's only 68%. If you have or maybe it's because you're requesting it. I have had some luxury sellers who didn't want a sign on their property. They wanted to keep the process of selling their home sold a little bit more confidential. But that sure doesn't account for 32%. So I'm not sure why that number is so low. Anyway, 88% multiple listing service. That's the thing, baby. You need your MLS, the multiple listing service, is the way to go. That's where everybody is tending to, where agents are using to market the home. But again, how is that not 100%? I guess that represents the number of licensed real estate agents that are not realtors, because you have to be a realtor to use the MLS. So is that implying 12% of real estate agents are not realtors? Could be. Realtor.com, this one should be the exact same as multiple listing service, because the National Association of Realtors owns the MLSs, and it automatically aggregates to Realtor.com when you enter something in the MLS. So I'm not real sure why that number's so low. But look at, and this is the part where questions you should ask start to crop up in terms of how your home's going to get marketed. Only 50% have a real estate agent website where they're going to promote your listings, the listing of your home. Half, that's a question to ask. Do you have a website where you'll promote the listings? Third-party aggregators, only 46%. Now remember, third-party aggregators, that's a thing we've talked about in past podcasts and past shows, where in order for listings that an agent enters into the MLS, they need to have their settings in the MLS set to allow aggregation to third-party websites. And for some of those third-party websites, it's not as simple as clicking a dot or a check mark or a checkbox or anything else. You actually have to go through some other steps to make it happen. Now, I've done that because obviously any exposure is good exposure when it comes to trying to sell a house. So mine aggregates to probably 99% of the sites out there that have anything to do with real estate. But if only 46% are facilitating aggregation, they are dramatically limiting the number of buyers that are potentially going to see your house. So ask that question. And if they don't even know what aggregation means, maybe you need to not hire them. Okay, real estate company website. Well, for me, it's the same. My company is my website, so 44%. And amazes me that a company website wouldn't promote their own listings. That's absolutely stupid. All right, social networking websites, Facebook, Twitter, 22%. Why would you not use social media? And I read an interesting article written by a real estate agent the other day about not promoting your websites on social media. I don't see a compelling argument for not pointing out that you have an active listing on your social media. I guess if you want to keep it social, fine, and just talk about what pie you had for lunch. But If you want to get out there and do the best work for your clients, maybe you should consider doing that. Next, virtual tours. 17% used virtual tours. Only 17% of homes getting virtual tours is kind of amazing to me. They're so easy to do. You can even do it with your iPhone now. So I'm not real sure why that's not a higher number. Video, only 12%. I tend to do video for everything. Direct mail, flyers, postcards, 9%. I'm in that 9%. I definitely do that. Other websites with real estate listings, yes, and I'm not sure how that's different from aggregation, but it's a thing. Print newspaper advertisements, 6%. Online classified ads, 5%. That would be like Craigslist. How are you not putting this on Craigslist? And of course, it depends on the home. Some marketing strategies don't apply to certain homes at certain levels. So of course, it shouldn't be a checklist where every single thing applies to every single property. You need to engage your brain a little bit and use common sense and figure out what marketing strategies make sense given the property and what it has to offer. Virtual open houses, only 4%. Video hosting websites, only 3%. So that's like YouTube. And television ads, 1%. So interesting what's not included, and I think you as someone who might consume the services of a real estate agent at some point should be realizing how little so many agents do to market the properties that they list. I think it's a little bit of a shock. Now, in terms of what should you do with this information, where are we at? First, don't let anyone define for you what an open house is. It's not complicated. It is a way to facilitate your home being viewed by people who want to buy it. Is it also an opportunity for your neighbors to come and poke around in your house? Yes. Is it an opportunity for looky-loos simply to come and get drape ideas from your house? Yes. Absolutely. But it is also the simplest, the easiest, the most convenient way for buyers to get access to your home. And the harder it is to access your home outside of an open house, just elevates the importance of doing open houses. For whatever reason, you list your home and require lots of conditions. We already talked about that. Discuss precautions with your agent. If you're concerned about really the only valid complaint here or only valid concern is the potential for giving an opportunity for your home to get something stolen, deal with it by coming up with precautions. Talk to your agent. What are things you can do as the seller of the home to minimize the level of risk you're taking by allowing an open house to happen on your home? Because the argument I'm going to make is the risk does not outweigh the benefit of an open house in terms of getting your home sold. So just keep that in mind. If you're someone who has tons of super valuable stuff in your house, in your bedroom, on display as tchotchkes or whatever else, let me suggest that since you have committed to selling and moving out of that house, pack up those things first. It's going to make your home look less cluttered anyway. So just go ahead and start doing that. I know that I usually advise most folks, if we're selling them in the summer months, which is usually when it happens, right? As we're exiting winter, pack up all your winter clothes. It's also going to make your closets look bigger. You're not going to have all those coats and sweaters and everything else. Pack all the stuff you don't need to wear for the next 3 months. It's a great way to make more room in your closet, but it's also a way to reduce any perceived clutter on the part of buyers that might come visit your home. And in terms of things that you can do as precautions as you list your home, your agent has to play a big part in that in terms of trying to keep an eye on everything they can keep an eye on, verifying that any buyers have not left any windows or doors unlocked in the hopes of potentially entering your home to steal something later. Those are all things I think most agents do, but given what I'm seeing here in terms of numbers and things they don't do, you might want to explicitly point out you really need to do that. Or you as the seller, when the open house is over and you come back home, check all the windows and doors and make sure that everything is locked up tight. And again, there's a nice little conversation I have with all of my folks who want to sell their home about how to protect their identities and their kids and everything else in terms of depersonalizing your home as you're trying to sell it. Because as I always say, we don't live in our homes the same way we sell our homes. So it's definitely a change. It's something we all have to do in order to sell effectively, but it's also a way to sell safely, and it can absolutely be accomplished. All right. So I hope that we have managed to give you some good information here. Open houses shouldn't be as complicated as they are. And whenever you see somebody artificially making something more complicated than it clearly needs to be, you might want to look for what the ulterior motives might be. So hopefully we have given you the tools you need to call that kind of stuff out. Make sure to ask these tough questions in your next listing appointment and use some of this data to find out if they're doing all these other things that most agents don't do, to find out if they're going to do it to earn the money you're about to pay them to sell their home. All right, folks, the goal here is always to leave more knowledge on the table than we take up in your time. Hope we've achieved that this time. Thanks again for listening. I'll talk to y'all next time.